Testing. Hello, hello. Hello, everyone. Anybody else that's not at the crossroads? Elizabeth Lim is in the house. If you're not here, I wonder why you're not. Do come by and pop by. We already have a very nice crowd. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to this book chat because it's a rare opportunity to see Elizabeth. You've flown in all the way for this, right? Mm.
I'm staying in Malaysia right now, so I came in from KL this morning, and I'm very happy to be here among all of you. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you so much for listening.
I think I've been wanting to do this since I read Six Crimson Cranes. And I think I even reached out to her on Instagram and said, I heard you're going to be in Singapore, can you do a book talk? And I think she ignored me.
Oh, sorry, I don't always read my messages, so I'm really bad, sorry.
It's okay, noted. We're very glad that you're here. So I'll dive right into the questions, but can I just get a show of hands who might have questions later? Because I want to give more time to you. So just, okay, 1, 2, I'm sure there'll be more as we talk. So we're actually here today to speak about A Forgery of Fate. Show of hands, has anybody finished reading this? I know it's quite new. Okay. So we'll talk a lot to Elizabeth about putting this book together. But before we start, I thought I'd like to lay the basis of your whole world. If you could, a quick introduction of the sequence of the books that you wrote and how they are connected to each other. So everybody gets a sort of bird's eye view.
So the first book that I wrote in this universe is Spin the Dawn, and my publisher likes to pitch it as Mulan meets Project Runway. So it's about a tailor who has to sew the 3 dresses of the sun, the moon, and the stars. And there's some influence from a French fairy tale called Donkey Skin and Mulan, and as well as the Cowherd and the Weaver. And honestly, when I wrote this book, I didn't know if I would really not be allowed, but have a publishing career. So I never expected to have the privilege of writing more books in this universe. But I always had like more ideas in my head, and so like the next one that I really wanted to write was Six Crimson Cranes, which is inspired by one of my favorite fairy tales, The Wild Swans. And so it's about a girl whose brothers are cursed into cranes, and she has to break that curse with the help of a dragon and a paper bird. And so from there, again, like I didn't know how this book would do, so I had in my mind that I really wanted to write a story about the stepmother in Six Crimson Cranes, which, like, if you know the story, The Wild Swans, in the original fairy tale, it's about a girl whose brothers are turned into swans by their stepmother. And in the fairy tale, usually the reason for the stepmother doing this is just that she was jealous of all the time that the king was spending with his children instead of with her. So she was like, I'm going to turn my stepsons into swans, and I'm going to curse my stepdaughter too. And like this just wasn't very satisfying to me as like a reason. I mean, I guess if you're evil in a fairy tale, you need to have a reason, but I just wanted more. So I really wanted to write Her Radiant Curse, which is a prequel about the stepmother and how she became the character that she is. Yeah. But so that one was definitely a passion project for me. It was very special. And then after that, I wanted to return to fairy tales and work on another one of my favorite fairy tales growing up, which is Beauty and the Beast with hints of Little Mermaid. And that is the new, that is A Forgery of Fate. And I've been really excited about this book. It is a standalone, unlike Spin the Dawn and Six Crimson Cranes. And it's a lot of fun. True is an art forger, so she has kind of a criminal background, unlike my other characters. And there's a lot of romance. There's a lot of little bits of Chinese folklore mythology that I grew up with, and that I just sprinkle in there, and like a lot of the dishes that my grandmother used to cook for me when I was a kid. So it's very dear to me in lots of little ways. Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for that. I wanted Elizabeth to do that because I followed every book as they came out, and I realized that they were all intertwined. But I did not realize that somebody from Dragon's Promise is the person in Forgery of Fate. So if you follow the series, I mean, if you read Forgery of Fate first, you can then go back to the rest?
I think a lot of it was when I was earlier as a writer, I didn't have like as much confidence like that I would have a publishing career as I keep mentioning. So I kept writing each book thinking, oh, this might be the last book in my contract. So I'm just going to like, I don't know whether I'll have a chance to write more, but if I do, like here's some characters who I would want to write more about in the future. And so luckily it's worked out, and so I was really excited to write a book like along.
Any writers here? So write your book like it's your last.
No. Actually, I don't think that's. I think I was just very like.
In the beginning.
In the beginning, I was kind of risk of because it took me actually a really long time to get published. It took me like 10 years or so. So I've been used to writing books and just shelving them and just like being like, oh, this is not going to be published. And in the end, I think it was a good thing because it was for me to learn. But then as I got published, like publishing can be quite volatile. And it's also part of your choice if you don't want to continue for your publishing journey. Like I have spent most of my life doing something else other than an author. So I wasn't really sure in the beginning whether I wanted to be a full-time writer. I didn't mean for that to reflect on my books. Like I tried to write my books with as much heart as I could, but in the back, you don't know whether your publisher is going to renew your contract. You don't know if they'll like your next idea. And so there's always that uncertainty. So I tried to, I didn't ever expect to get to create a world.
And for that, thank you. Okay, let's get to Forgery of Fate. You pull out all these, I would say, global fairy tales, international Western / fairy tales, and in Forgery of Fate, there's a little bit of everything in there. My question for you is, when you start, you go Beauty and the Beast, and then how should I structure this whole tale around this retelling? Or do you go, no, it's Truyan. How do I structure this whole tale and then put in elements of Beauty and the Beast?
I think it's very much both. I think when I start a book, usually I'll have the frame in mind. So for this one, I knew it was going to have the bones of Beauty and the Beast, but I very much didn't go with like the Disney Beauty and the Beast. I went more with the original French Beauty and the Beast, in which Belle Beauty has 2 sisters, and in the original tale, the sisters aren't exactly good, but I wanted to show a close relationship for True and her sisters, because actually I have 3 daughters. I do have 3 daughters. and so it was important for me to show this close sister bond, and so with those bones, I think I don't actually go back and read the fairy tale when I'm starting off the book. I try to rely on my memory of it from when I was a kid, because I think having actually like going through these feelings that you have had rather than like by the text, it allows for more creativity. So I'm very happy to like diverge from the original fairy tale and make it my own. And with A Forgery of Fate, I think it was pretty easy to do because, for one, True is an art forger. She's not just like a merchant's daughter. And there's dragons instead of a beast, and it's underwater.
It is. So there is a library though.
Yeah.
I very distinctly felt, there's a library in the Beast's version's home.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
How intentional was that?
I mean, I don't think I was thinking too much of the Disney one, but I am a writer and I love books, so I couldn't resist. I think in every book that I have, there's usually a character who likes to read, and that is very much intentional.
Okay. So let's talk about Truyan. So some of you have read this book, but most of you, I think, would know some character from the other books. Let's talk about how you build your heroines. Right? How do you make them? Because they're spunky and they're brave and they have a lot of doubt, and there's some tension, with the guy. Like, how do you build sort of relational dynamics in your books?
I think I build them very slowly and with a lot of sweat and tears, honestly.
How? Please elaborate.
So I would say it takes at least a year or closer to 2 or 3 for me to write a book. So I'll usually start working on it while I'm editing another book. And this allows me time to get to know my characters. And as I've grown more experienced as a writer, I have noticed that the way I write characters is very much like a friendship. Like, I feel like there has to be a spark between me and the main character in the beginning, but there's so much that I don't know about them. So it's a lot of like getting to know them, writing scenes that may or may not work, and just like evolving with them in the story and trying to learn like little things about them, like their favorite color, like what food they might like, or how they might react to a certain situation, and how they their relationship with like the love interest, for instance, is something that I really enjoy writing, and that is like, you know the saying that dream within a dream. This is like a relationship within a relationship, right? So I'm getting to know the main character, while the main character's getting to know like the love interest, and I just really like exploring the chemistry that they'll have between them, and I don't think that's something that can be forced. Like sometimes I'll write two characters who just don't seem to go right together, and that's just like a sign that you have to start again.
Start again by way of characterizing, or start again by way of removing the person?
Sometimes I haven't ever removed a main character, but sometimes you do have to take a step back and just figure out why this isn't working and like try again.
Okay, I don't know if some of you all felt this, but in almost every book, there are one or two moments where I go like, and I go like, right? So how do you plan that, or did you even know when you were writing certain scenes that this was what you wanted to induce?
I honestly, every book has been different in the writing experience, and I don't think I naturally plan to have such moments in the book, but they usually just happen. I think with like a natural story journey, like often during a climax, you have like an emotional journey or revelation or something that happens, and I think that's just like a natural climax for a story. And like a lot of my books, I like to explore like different sorts of love, not just romantic love, but also love between friends, love between sisters, brothers, siblings, parents. And I think just exploring those close relationships often leads to like emotional, like emotional climaxes.
We can reverse engineer this a bit. How do you build a close relationship within a relationship with your characters? And then how do you build it between them? Because obviously by the time you end, there is this provoking of emotion in your reader.
Again, I think that goes back to the sweat and tears. I think
What is this process?
I think it's just like spending time. I don't think it's something that I personally can do in a month or even a year. It just needs time for me to get to know them, really well, and for them to get to know each other on the page. And through the process of editing, like I draft very messily. So often when I'm drafting and I look at the characters, I'm like, oh, this doesn't feel right. But there's something about it that has a spark, so that encourages me to go on. And then through the magic of editing, I slowly become more confident in the characters and like in getting to know them. And then it just sort of happens over time.
Okay, thank you. I'll take that. What about dragons? Because dragons are in vogue, and we know, thanks to Fourth Wing, that dragons have exploded on social media. But your dragons are very different. Whose dragons are better?
I think that's a really difficult question.
You don't have to be diplomatic in this space.
I do think they are different because my dragons tend to be more inspired by like East Asian folklore, and the dragons in Fourth Wing are more Western. So I don't think that it's very easy to compare them, and I'm not really trying to compare them when I write them. The reason I have the dragons in my stories is mainly because they were in a lot of the folk tales that I read when I was growing up and in a lot of the mythology. So I kind of wanted to pay homage to that, and it felt very relevant to include them in my stories as I was sketching out my world.
But your Ilang, how do you pronounce
Ilang.
Ilang. Ilang is half dragon, half human. And the way you describe him, that's why you liken him to a beast. And also I was thinking in Six Crimson Cranes, I forget her name. Your main character.
Shiori.
Shiori, yes. Shiori is also has not disfigurement, but something on her head the whole time. What was the intention behind sort of imperfect protagonists?
So
Characters.
the story with Shuri having a bowl over her head is actually inspired by a Japanese fairy tale that I grew up with. So it's like an Asian version almost of Cinderella, like another variation of Cinderella, where um, her mother on her deathbed puts a bowl over her head and tells her not to take it off because she finds that she's worried that people will take advantage of her for her beauty, and so she wants her to be with someone who appreciates her for herself. So I think these stories are less about. I mean, I do think it's important as a writer, especially a writer of fairy tales, to like discover imperfections in character. I think that flawed characters are much more interesting than perfect characters, but it's less about that and more about like the journey of finding yourself. Um, and I think that story is also true for Along. Like all his life, he's been trying to break this curse where he looks half dragon and half human, so he can never really belong in either world. And so he's trying to break that curse, but then along the way, look, I'm not going to spoil anything, but he finds that he may have a different goal.
You made Ilang a very pained character. What did you base him on? I felt very bad for him.
I don't know. He was one of the characters that really came to life in my head, like quite vividly. I thought it was very like as I was writing Dragon's Promise, I had the idea for a Beauty and the Beast story in my head. Like I didn't know whether I would get to write it, but I wanted to plant that seed in there to kind of like not force my publisher, but like be like, hey, I have this character here already, so I think you should let me write this book. Um, but as for Along, like I think a lot of times in Chinese mythology and in my books, like dragons are painted as these very majestic and cunning creatures. And I wanted to show somebody who was trapped somewhere in between, like to also give more depth to these dragons and um, show them sort of traversing both worlds.
Actually, would you say you gave more airtime to Ilang or to the guy this time? Because I'm just thinking of Takan, who is the supportive man. But are you giving more airtime to both sides this time? I feel
I think,
a bit more.
his
I don't know. Complexities and his.
Yeah, maybe.
Was it intentional or?
I don't think I thought about it. Yeah.
Or did you just feel for Ilang
I think
more in this case?
I
Curious.
I think because he has this story and this goal, he probably has more airtime and like he has more to show for like more. There's more of a trajectory for him, more of a character arc.
I'm also very curious how you got started because if I'm not wrong, and correct me if I'm wrong, you started with Disney-related writing. I'm not sure, but I was curious how you started from Spin the Dawn, retelling global fairy tales into all the way to Forgery of Fate. It's almost become a technique for you. I'm not sure.
I think it's just something I love to do. I think I've always loved fairy tales. I grew up on the Disney films, and like they've always been very dear to me. And so it's just something I wanted to do.
Is there some Little Mermaid in here as well?
Yeah, so A Forgery of Fate is partially set underwater, as you can tell from the cover, and there's like there's some it's underwater, and so there are some mermaids in here. So there's a little bit of Little Mermaid influence.
I'm not sure in East Asian law what is underwater. How did you build the mermaids are pretty fierce, if I remember correctly, in yours.
A little bit.
Yeah, they're warriors, right?
Yeah.
How did you build? How did you build? I think there were turtles. There were various undersea creatures.
Yeah.
How did you build or decide? How did you decide on which which sea creature it's going to be the henchman.
I
for
think those are
example.
just my personal preference. I like turtles, so I like turtles. I don't like sharks. So my kids love sharks because of Baby Shark, but I still think that they're kind of scary. So I think it's just personal preference, and like the world that I built underwater is more my own than inspired by like Chinese mythology or Western mythology. It was just something that I spent some time working on by myself.
I mean, which is what I really appreciate because in this generation, we're a mix of everything, right? So I kind of appreciate you integrating your influences into something like this, where we kind of really pinpoint where exactly it's
Yeah.
from. Yeah.
Yeah.
So would you call it an East Asian fantasy world as you move along?
I very much say it's inspired by East Asian fantasy because like I don't use any like specific Asian words or like any Chinese names. And that's sort of on purpose because originally when I was working on like Spin the Dawn, I had written it set in ancient China originally, but I just found that it actually I felt quite limited. I started researching a lot of like ancient Chinese history, and there was one scene where my main character Maya was knitting, and then I was like, oh my god, there wasn't any knitting in ancient China, and I just like broke down for a few days, and I was like, okay, I can't do this. This is fantasy. I'm not writing historical fantasy, so it helped me remove myself a little bit by creating my own world.
Do you think it's a little of your own influence as well? Because for some reason, I took down crullers, fried crullers. But you mean youtiao, right? Actually.
Yeah.
But then cruller is a Western sort of donut. Yeah. So would you say it's also part of your own cosmopolitan sort of mixed world that you live in now?
I'm sorry, I don't quite understand.
So you're saying that I'm saying that this is a very cosmopolitan approach to this story, right? But it's also who you are because you're formerly Malaysian, but now you're in the US.
Yeah.
And the way you write your food as well. Youtiao is a cruller, where we identify both ways, I suppose.
Yeah. The food is very important to me in my books.
It sounded very delicious actually, and she was always. Oh, actually, you said she always. I had. She's always leading with her stomach.
Yeah.
I think we can all identify with it. So I'm curious, any questions? Because I know there are a lot of fans here. Yes.
Hi, good afternoon. I had a question for you as an author, not specifically for the book, but as with your experience over the past few years. Especially with things like book talk, a lot of books have been kind of condensed down into tropes and to book comps. And I was wondering how you kind of thought and interacted with that, and if that almost took away from the expansiveness of your universe. As an example, I saw someone compare Pride and Prejudice to a enemies to lovers thing, so I was wondering how that kind of you feel about that.
Thanks, that's a great question. I have mixed feelings about it. On one hand, I actually find it really helpful when I'm talking about my book to be like, oh, this is marriage of convenience and like forced proximity. Like it's very helpful in terms of marketing and sharing my book with readers and helping readers find like, the tropes that they enjoy. But I think as an author, I personally feel like I have to be careful because I don't want to go into a book specifically being like, oh, I'm going to write an enemies to lovers book and then like try to fit in as many tropes as I can. I like to just write what I want to read. I think that's the rule that I've given myself, like write what I want to read and what I would have wanted to read when I was a teen. So I think that it's good and bad. And definitely I have author colleagues who find it very helpful to have tropes when they're writing. So it's everyone's own experience. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. It's just for me it can be a little dangerous because I'm like, oh, like there's so many different tropes that I could fit in, but no, so that's why I kind of try to stay clear.
Actually, how do you plot the series of events? Because everything is tied up nicely at the back. And you say you spend 1 or 2 years with your characters writing them, but what about the plotting and if you are not trope based, how do you build such a?
I usually outline first. Yeah.
Questions?
I've read all the books, and I'm a big fan. I only have one question. Okay, sure. Will Suri get his happily ever after at the end?
I want to know the answer to that question too.
So I'm
Will Serial get his happily ever after?
I cannot answer anything officially because I can't announce anything officially. Yeah, sorry. I mean, I plan
It's a very
things.
important question that you just answered today.
I plan things very far in advance, so that's why you'll see the threads in the book. So I can't say anything officially because I don't think it's fair for my editor if I announce anything before
You all
she's
go home
seen
now.
anything.
You don't know what's gonna happen to Sari.
So I'm sorry, but watch my Instagram.
How far in advance did you plan all this by way of From Spin the Dawn? Or did it?
And so with Spin the Dawn, again, I was a very new author,
okay.
and this was my first contract, so I didn't know whether it would ever happen, whether more books would happen. But actually, the next book that I wrote from after Unravel the Dusk, which is the sequel, was Hurricane first. I wrote this before Six Crimson Cranes,
Oh, you did.
which was interesting because this is a prequel. But after showing the first draft to my agent, she recommended, because I when I was writing it, I had a feeling it was part of a larger story. And I had the idea for Six Crimson Cranes already, but my agent thought it would be easier to sell to my publisher if I wrote Six Crimson Cranes
I
first.
see.
So, and then after I wrote Six Crimson Cranes, I wasn't ever sure if they would want Hurricane Curse, because everyone kept telling me, oh, prequels don't do well. So I was like, oh my god. It was
Do
very
you have any
stressful.
idea how it's doing?
I don't need to know.
You don't need
it.
to know. I'm curious because in relation to all this, she became very important.
Yeah, she's very
Yeah.
important. I think what was just important to me was that this was like a passion project, and just that it got published, I was very grateful to my publisher because I felt like they really respected the world I was trying to create. And so I'm just happy that whoever wants to read it can read it, and if you don't want to, that's okay too.
But was she already the mother of Sherry?
Yes, she
In
was.
your
Yeah,
mind?
in my mind, she was already
was.
there, and I think that really helped flesh out the characters.
Ah,
Yeah.
wow, I never knew that. But by the way, because the demons, they appear,
Yeah.
and the dragons, the underwater, and there's a whole map in the beginning of Forgery of Fate. Yeah, so it's extensive. How did you, when did you start forming? If not from here.
I think I did
Oh, you
start
did
forming
start
a little bit in Spin the Dawn. I was like, oh, I can see this as part of a bigger world. But I was very much luxuriating in my own fantasy world, right? I was like, well, even if no one else gets to read what I'm imagining, that's okay because it's very cool in my head.
That's awesome. That's the best reason,
Yeah.
isn't it, to write? More questions?
How do you find the time to write? Do you write every day, or it depends on your schedule?
So my agent likes to say that my secret talent is discipline. I'm very good at just sitting there in my chair and working. Yeah, I wouldn't say that I write every day, but I definitely treat it as a job. Even if I'm not feeling inspired, even if I don't have any ideas for the day, I just sit in my chair and I try to write something. And even if I end up deleting everything that I wrote that day, it's fine because I feel like I learned even when I deleted. I'm like, oh, I wrote something, it didn't work out. That's fine because I learned that this isn't working, and so tomorrow I'll try a different approach. So I try to stay positive, but my husband, who's in the audience somewhere, he will also share that every other day, I'm like, this is trash. This book is trash. It's awful. So there's a lot of self-doubt, but and it's definitely not easy. And I think you just have to believe in the story and want to write it. But but also remind yourself that it's okay for there to be days, even weeks, even months where you're just like, this book is awful.
Is there a writing cycle? Is there you said editing and writing? What's the
So
current cycle?
I try to draft the whole book first, because it's important for me to reach the end or somewhere near the end, just so that I can like see it. Because I think it's very easy to just keep refining the beginning, to just keep going. Oh, there was it.
It's like,
And so it's very easy to keep like rewriting the beginning over and over and never move on to the end. But what I do like to do is I do like to have a clean like first chapter, so that when I am at the point of my book where I'm like, this is rubbish, I can go back to the first chapter and be like, oh, it's so clean and sparkly. Like, there was something hopeful about this story. So I just need to encourage myself.
Hi, I just want to say that you have like the prettiest like UK covers ever.
thank you.
So I was just wondering like, do you have any say to like the cover design? And now that I learned that you actually written her Radiant Curse first, so would you recommend us starting with that first before diving right into Six Crimson Queens?
Okay, thank you. I love my covers as well. I actually don't have a ton of say in the covers. Usually, like, I will say small things like, oh, change the color of the dragon's eyes, or like change the color of the flowers for symbolic reasons. But generally, like, not too much say. So I've been very lucky that they've turned out so beautifully. It's just my publishers all have very good taste, I guess. As for reading Her Radiant Curse first, I think for maximum enjoyment, I would read Six Crimson Cranes, Her Radiant Curse, and then The Dragon's Promise. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So that's the author's cut.
Is there any reason why this is so much brighter? This is very pastel, and this is.
It's a different artist.
It is?
Yeah, it's a different artist.
I see. I know that. Oh. But still, the colors did not. Because I know you have all your books in a sort of ombre, you know.
Yeah, they kept the spine ombre, but my publisher decided to go with a different artist for A Forgery of Fate.
But
It's the same vibe, yeah. Just to also kind of show that it's like you can read this one first. You don't have to have read any of the other books. So they wanted to show that this can also be like on its own.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
But chronologically, this follows immediately after I was reading somewhere.
Oh yeah, it follows after Dragon's Promise. Yeah.
More questions? Yes.
May I know if there's like any other books set in this world? And I also like to ask like, you mentioned like lawyer, like I'm not too sure like what is that word. And like my last question is that like the Spin the Dawn is set like 500 years after from the rest of your books. Like, can I know like is there any difference like, in the time periods? Thank you.
Yeah, those are good questions. Thank you. So whether there's going to be any more books in this universe, I'm afraid I cannot announce yet, because again, my editor hasn't read anything, so I don't feel right to announce before she's read. But hopefully she'll read soon. And then Loryan is just the name of the continent where these books are set. So my publisher wanted a name for this series title, like for all of the books, like they just wanted a name to call it. So they called it The Legends of Loryan. And then the last question was, so Spin the Dawn, the time period, actually that's a really interesting question. It is set 500 years after, and the historical setting that inspired this one is closer to like the Spice Road. Not Spice, that's the name of the book. The Silk Road. The Silk Road. I studied a lot of Silk Road history in college. So it was very interesting for me, like the confluence of like Asian and European trade. So that inspired some of the setting in this book. Yeah, so that's sort of the historical influence, but it's fantasy and it's not accurate.
I have a very basic understanding of how new books are optioned in the US. But I thought that once something was optioned, you would have an announcement to say you have a new book coming up. Does that mean you have not arrived at that stage yet? It needs to go through your editor first before it gets sold. Probably using the wrong language.
So I'm not on an option right now. I'm on a contract. So my books are under contract. But at the same time, like if my editor hasn't read my next book yet, like there's still a chance that she'll be like, oh, I don't like this. Like, don't write it. So it's just me being careful, and also out of respect, I feel that like since she hasn't had a chance to read it yet, I don't want to announce anything prematurely.
At least know how many books are contracted, so we know how many we can look forward to.
I will say that I do have an announcement coming out soon that is for a book that's not set in this universe, and I'm quite excited about it because it's for a completely different genre. It's an adult book, and so that's all I will say about that. I've been waiting for this announcement for a long time, so I'm just like hoping it'll come soon.
Yeah, I'm ex-CNA. I need to grill you further.
No, I cannot. My agent from across the ocean will
excommunicate.
will-
Will you ever write contemporary? I mean, this is not related. It was in my questions.
I think I already said it's a different genre. So
Questions.
What is the connection between Shiori and Maya?
Oh, okay, that's a good question. So there is a part in Unravel the Dusk where Maya is told the story of Shiori very briefly, and like I don't want to spoil anything, but they're all connected. So like I was a bit naughty when I was writing Unravel the Dusk because I didn't have a new contract, but I was like, okay, I'm gonna just weave in a little bit of Shiori into this story so that my editor becomes intrigued. And so when I send her the pages for Six Terms and Cringe, she'll be like, oh. So there's some connection there, but there may be more connections to come. There's a lot of Easter eggs that I lay around. But yeah, Maya is the last, I guess, because she's like the furthest in time. So like she's the one who will see all of the other characters. Sorry, I don't know if that really answers your question. Oh, okay.
I'm just going to take one or two more questions, and then those who want to acquire books, you need to acquire ASAP so that you can get them signed when we're done. Two, yeah. Maybe the one behind you first. Raise the hands and then pass the microphone.
What does Alma and Green in the title?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
That in the Six Terms and Cringe, they call Shiori, Alma. Respect.
Oh, it's an honorific to show that she's princess of the country.
What about Ilangu?
It's also honorific for him. He has a different one because he's from a different world.
Why did you decide to do something?
I mean, I think it's just world building. Yeah.
Endearment versus honorific.
Yeah.
Did you have a question? This lady in the front.
How do you decide which of your ideas to turn into books, and how do you decide when to connect them and when to make them a standalone?
Okay. So I think the ideas for me, like, I'm not somebody who has a lot of ideas. I tend to write down ideas in a list and then like think about them for a while. And if I'm still thinking about them like a month later, then I will pursue it. And sometimes ideas don't work out. Like sometimes I'll write 100 pages and just be like, this isn't working. I don't think it can be saved. I just have to scrap it. And that's just something that I recognize I have to do and just have to tell myself it's not time wasted. And so the ideas that work out are the ones that I want to continue working on. They might have problems, they might have something that's not working, but I want to fix it. So that's sort of how the idea is, and I just like writing things I like writing things that I'm excited to write about. Like for Spin the Dawn, for instance, my grandmother was a seamstress, and I always really liked like reading about fashion, so it was exciting for me to write about like her sewing dresses and creating them. Um, and then like food, for instance, I'm like, oh, I always like to eat, so I'm gonna write about food. And then, I'm sorry, what was the second part of your question? Okay, how do I decide when to connect my stories? Okay, I think I just really like connecting them. It's more for me, like I don't expect all my readers to have read all my books, but I like the feeling of having this interconnected world, and I like having these little threads that continue from book to book, and I think it's just really something that's just, that makes me happy as a writer.
Any more questions? Just one last one so we get more time with Elizabeth to sign books here.
As a writer, do you ever face writer's block? And if you do, how do you like move past it?
Oh, I definitely face writer's block. I think the biggest writer's block that I have faced was with A Forgery of Fate. I can't talk too much about it because it will give away a big spoiler. But basically, I couldn't figure out that spoiler needed to happen. And once I figured it out, everything just fell into place. It was quite magical, actually. But I thought about it for months and months. So I just had to set it aside because I was working on editing a different book at the time, so that was helpful. But when I have writer's block, usually there is a problem in the narrative, and what I usually try to do is I'll save a new copy of my draft and erase like the last chapter or like the last two chapters that I've written and try to just start again. And I'll also take walks, also take long showers, also like, I don't know, talk to my sister on the phone and just like try not to think about the book, which is really hard because I'm pretty obsessive. So, but I think time away is actually very helpful. So it was helpful that I had to work on another book on deadline, and just took several months off. And then when I came back to it, and then I had that idea, and I was like, oh, this solves my problem.
Any more before we go? Any more questions? Okay, so please continue to obsess over your stories. Write it for your own enjoyment so that we will all get these books. Thank you very much for coming today. Thank you very much. Elizabeth
Before you
Lim.
guys
Yeah,
leave,
we want to take pictures.
please turn around so we can do a group photo with Elizabeth.
When you get shots. Everybody say Elizabeth Lim reigns forever.